It's the third and final hour of OverDrive here on TSN 1050. Now up on TSN 2. National audience for the fellas. Aaron Korolnek, usually hosting first up on TSN 1050. Called up to the big leagues to work with Frank Corrado. We've got 1 hour left, Frank, and what an hour it is. Mark Schlereth will join us in about 5 minutes. We'll talk to Rich Griffin from the Exit Philosophy podcast. Covered the Jays for a long time. Big win for the Bluebirds today. 7-0 over Washington. Kind of extinguishing some of the stink from last night where, man, did they ever screw the pooch on that one.
I just wonder now if it's going to be one of those things. You're going to win one, you're going to lose two, win one again, lose one. Like, where do they go from here? Are they going to put it together the way Seattle has been, the way Houston has been? Or is this the Jays? They're 5-5 in their last 10. Like, that's the team they've been right now. They're a 500 team. It's not good enough to make the playoffs.
Seemingly every time the Jays win, the teams they're competing with also win. Perhaps some good news on that front. Well, it looks like Houston's going to beat Boston tonight, but Seattle down 5-3 to Oakland. And unfortunately, Oakland basically traded any quality reliever they have. So I'm sure they'll somehow blow this game.
And Julio Rodriguez is going to hit a 3-run home run
guaranteed.
at some point. This guy's on fire.
Guaranteed will just go yard. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Oakland.
Sounds about right.
That's the way they lose it. Yeah. So good news for the Jays. We'll talk to Rich. And I'm fired up to talk to Mark Schlereth, one of my favorite guests, NFL on Fox, 3-time Super Bowl champion. Man, the NFL season, 1 week tomorrow, gets underway. The Chiefs and the Lions, our fantasy football draft here at TSN 1050. The Grappler's part of it. JP's a part of it. You're making your debut in fantasy football.
Yeah, first time I've ever played fantasy football. So
you should draft Tom Brady. I think he's going to have a really big year.
Yeah, well, maybe tomorrow Brady will announce he's coming out of retirement. We'll have something to talk about.
There were those rumors actually today. I don't know if you saw it coming out of New England because they had one quarterback on their roster, that being Mac Jones. So they tried to get Bailey Zappi, who was, I think, 2-0, and Mac Jones is kind of took over for Jones at times last year when he was really struggling. They tried to get Zappi through waivers. He did indeed clear, and now he's going to be on the practice squad for the Pats. Ultimately will be their backup when it's all said and done. But apparently a number of teams were interested in trading for Zappi or in signing Zappi, I should say. And no, he wanted to stay in New England.
He has a choice. In that situation, he has a choice where he can say, I appreciate the interest, but I'd rather stay here in New England, work under Belichick, whatever the case may be, and have an opportunity here.
He did. That was his choice, was to stay in New England there, and he'll be their backup eventually. I guess it has something to do with the 53-man roster and trying to finagle how it works in certain ways. But imagine Brady's like, actually, guys, arena shake, you're out. Belichick, you're back in.
There's just no way. By the way, I know we never really weighed into this on the show, the whole Brady, Messi, who's bigger, who has a bigger following. This Messi has a bodyguard at all times. He's even on the field. He walks the sidelines back and forth. He doesn't run it, but like he'll follow Messi wherever he goes on the field. And this guy looks nails.
Yeah, he's like Jack Ryan. He's like John Krasinski, shredded up and ready to destroy anyone who even approaches Messi. You saw Ronald Acuna Jr. in the outfield getting attacked by those fans a couple of nights.
Dude, I thought that was outrageous, and I know everyone's been weighing in on this. Yeah. Here's my opinion. You want to run on the field, they should be able to open up a can of whoop-ass on you.
Can you imagine if someone approached Messi, what that Navy SEAL bodyguard that he has would do to them?
I'm thinking it's suplex.
Well, like,
right, he'd grab him and it's body slam right through the field.
Like a rock bottom into a stone cold stunner into, what was the Undertaker's move? The tombstone pile driver.
Yeah, the choke
Just
slam.
all of them in one because, it would be very ugly. I don't think anyone wants to get close to Messi considering the security guard he's got.
But even you watch his eyes, right? Like he's looking this way, then he's looking that way. He's always on his toes, man. It's very impressive what he does.
Most certainly. I don't think Brady's got anybody like that, but, he could. I actually was watching Limitless with Bradley Cooper. Towards the end of the movie, he's got the bodyguards as well, and that's kind of how Brady operates.
He had something to hide, though.
Yeah, he did. He had all those NZT pills that I may have watched the first half a couple of times. What a fantastic movie. So, again, we'll talk to Rich Griffin in about 25 minutes. Mark Schlereth is coming up, and we've got to get into this Jonathan Taylor situation with the Colts. He's on the physically unable to perform list. He's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. And by all accounts, the Colts asking price for Taylor was so egregious, including, we want Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins.
Dude, give your head a shake.
I'm sure you do.
Miami's not trading Jalen Waddle for a running back. That guy's shelf life could be 3-4 years.
Oh, that's exactly it. And the running back position has been devalued to the point where the Colts have virtually no leverage in this conversation anymore because, number one, Taylor doesn't want to play for the Indianapolis Colts anymore. Number two, if you trade for him, you need to give him a massive contract, something in the vicinity of probably $14, $15 million a year in the McCaffrey or Chubb conversation, which you don't want to do at this point in time because you don't need to. And you're going to need to part with probably a second-round pick and something else. It makes no sense. I don't know how this Taylor situation plays out, but it's not going to play out well for Indianapolis.
No, and why do you want to be that owner or that GM that goes out and makes this trade and starts establishing a new market for running backs? You have such a good thing going here from an ownership point of view, where you're doing 1-year deals under the franchise tag and you're keeping these guys cost controlled. Like, you're going to be that guy that kind of just sets a new precedent. I think you'd have a lot of unhappy owners calling you.
And if you want to feel old, the Indianapolis Colts have 0 players on their 53-man roster over the age of 30. Okay. 0 players. A youth movement in Indianapolis, led by Anthony Richardson, their number 4 overall pick out of Florida. Terrific athlete. Not really sure what he's going to be able to bring to the NFL in year number 1. But we have a man on the line who most certainly knows the answer to that from the NFL on Fox. The Stinkin' Truth podcast, 3-time Super Bowl champion, Mark Schlereth, back on the show. What's up, Mark?
How you guys doing?
We're good, man. Can you explain what the Indianapolis Colts are trying to do with Jonathan Taylor for us? Because I cannot, for the life of me, figure this one out.
Well, I mean, what can't you figure out? They don't want to pay him.
Well, I understand that, but why keep him on your roster? Like, aren't you devaluing him by keeping him through the first 4 weeks of the season when he's on the PUP list? Like, I just don't understand what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, they're basically, they have an asset that they don't need to pay, and they're letting him know what his value is on the open market. Nobody traded a first round. If he's so valuable, you wouldn't trade a first rounder for him? No, because nobody will, because the running back position has been devalued. You know, for me personally, I'm sick and tired of hearing the running backs whine. As a matter of fact, you know, I didn't hear one running back stand up for a fullback when they were making the fullback extinct in this league, right? Did you hear anybody go, well, how come fullbacks? You know what? I'm going to stand in solidarity with the fullbacks because those guys aren't getting paid. They're dumping those guys out of the league, and everybody's going to 3 wides and it's no more 2 backs. I didn't hear one running back stand up for any of those guys when they were losing money, when they were getting cut. So you know all the whining and the crap that goes on. You know, if you're an elite level running back and you make your number of years and you get to be a guy. They're paying those guys $10-12 million. That's what the going rate is. So, like, I don't know. I just find it a little bit ridiculous. And the value on the open market, the Indianapolis Colts are letting you know what your value is, and it's not as much as you think it is. And by the way, you were hurt last year. So, you know, I mean, I get it. Running backs are incredibly valuable. I love the running back position. I love how hard-nosed it is, and I think Jonathan Taylor's a great running back. But the bottom line is they don't have to pay you, and they're letting you know they don't have to pay you.
Mark, I'm wondering what you think of Trey Lance and going to the Dallas Cowboys. They trade a 4th-round pick to get him. I look around the league, and I'm like, you're telling me there's other teams that weren't willing to give up a 4th-round pick just to try a flyer on this guy and see what he can do, you know, in your system. And then I look at it from Dallas's point of view, and I think this is a good bet for them. Why not bring in Trey Lance? It's only going to cost you a 4th. You have some viable insurance if Dak goes down this year.
Yeah, I think oftentimes you look at what you thought of a guy coming out, and there's probably several teams that didn't think he was, you know, valued at, you know, a high 1st-round pick anyhow. And then what can he do? What can he do? Do we have to change our system? Like, can he fit into our system? You know, we're pretty comfortable with the guys we have right now. I get it, 4th-round pick. You know, seems to me to be a pretty low-value proposition. I will say this about the Dallas Cowboys. One of the issues and one of the reasons I don't believe they'll ever win a championship, not with Jerry Jones in charge, is because Jerry Jones absolutely emasculated his head coach. He did not consult with the head coach. He didn't tell anybody in the organization. He just went out and made the deal himself. And ultimately, as a player, and I know how it works, when you know your head coach ain't in charge, guess what? When things aren't going your way or you're not getting the ball enough, you don't have a man-to-man conversation with your head coach. You go whine about it to your owner. And it's just from the standpoint of an organizational structure issue, that's a problem, man. That's a huge problem. And I've been around enough players to know that if they don't respect their head coach or they know their head coach doesn't have the authority to cut them, there's not a lot going on there. So I get the value of Trey Lance, and I understand that, hey, take a flyer and all that kind of stuff. I think that there's a reason, that he has struggled. Obviously, the injury part of that. I don't think he's the athlete that people thought he was. He's more of a straight line guy. But the bottom line is, what he played 13, 15 games in college total at a Division I AA school. And I'm a 1AA guy, so I believe in those guys. But you got to play football, and so there's a big hill to climb for him. I get the flyer part. I don't have any problem with taking a flyer, fourth rounder. I don't really value the draft like a lot of people value the draft. So that part doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is Jerry Jones just went ahead and made the deal without actually consulting anybody within that organization, and that's a problem.
Mark Schlereth is our guest, three-time Super Bowl champ, NFL on Fox analyst, the host of the Stinkin' Truth podcast. We saw Joe Burrow back at practice for the Cincinnati Bengals. He missed a bunch of weeks with that calf injury. How much of an effect do you think that'll have on the early season Bengals performance, Mark? Burrow missed a bunch of preseason time, a bunch of practice. Is he good enough to overcome all that?
Yeah, one thing about Joe, that always hurts you and it puts you behind a little bit. But that guy is so good, and I think the thing that probably doesn't get made enough of with him is, yeah, he's accurate. Yeah, he gets rid of the ball. Yeah, I mean, he knows where to go with the football. He makes the game look easy for himself. But that dude is tough, man. That dude will take one of the lips and deliver a football. And that is one of those things from a respect standpoint. As a player and as a guy on that team, he'll stand in there and take a beating and still deliver the football. Man, there is so much respect for that guy throughout the league, but within the walls of his own complex, big time mystique, big time respect. And the reason the Cincinnati Bengals have gone from a doormat organization to a Super Bowl contender, and it's because of that dude. And there's very few guys that come into an organization and kind of change the culture, I don't want to say on his own, but has the majority of the majority of the responsibility of changing that culture goes to Joe Burrow. So will he be limited to a degree? Yeah, whatever he's limited, he'll make up for in just his moxie, his ability to play, and his toughness.
How much do you make of certain teams' past and kind of who they are? Because I look at two teams. I look at the Jets, and there's a bunch of new pieces in there, and expectations are very, very high for them, considering they've brought in Rodgers and company. I also look at a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there's big expectations there. I think Trevor Lawrence wants to establish himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and that certainly is attainable for him. But both those franchises just have this kind of odor of losing. I know Jacksonville had 9 wins last year. The Jets had 7. But how much do you think the haunted past kind of follows these teams regardless of who the personnel is?
Yeah, I think there's merit to that. I always joke around here on my Denver radio show that Chargers are going to charge her. They're going to find a way to lose close games. That's what they do. That's just who they are. And there's something to that. Although I will say this, when you've had that history as a franchise, it's almost like you're waiting for something bad to happen. And, I think one of the things that ends up happening to you psychologically, if you will, is I just remember playing a game against Cincinnati where Cincinnati was beating us, and it was the year of 1998 when we started the season 13-0. And they were beating us, and and there was a calmness on our sideline, like this is not a big deal. We're down, so what? We're down by 2 touchdowns or whatever, no big deal. And there was just this calmness about it. And the thing I had always thought, and the thing we had talked about, is those guys over there in that franchise are basically saying, hey, the Broncos are so good, they're so dominant right now, that we're going to have to play almost a perfect game to beat them. And my whole thought process, and we talked about this, as a team, is like, they're just like, all we have to do is weather the storm until they make that one mistake. And when they make that one mistake, they'll be on the side there going, uh-oh, here we go again. Here we go again. And there is something to that here we go again. It works both ways. When you're a winning franchise, you always just believe we're going to find a way to win a game. We're going to find a way to make a critical play in a critical moment. And there's a confidence, there. And I think the bad franchises that have a history of losing let people rob them of their confidence. One mistake and you're like, oh gosh. And those franchises, that stuff is real. Now, you put a guy like Rodgers within that context and within that mix, and things can change around pretty fast. You win 1 or 2 of those games that normally you would lose, and all of a sudden guys will start to believe. So the Jets are really interesting that way. And I think Jacksonville, for the most part, is interesting that way. What they did last year, how they came back in that playoff game. And Doug Peterson I think he's a really good coach, and he's really helped Trevor Lawrence, grow as an NFL quarterback. So, I look at those 2 franchises. I think they're on the cusp of a couple of good things fall their way, and they could make a nice run.
Mark, you mentioned you host radio in Denver. I think a lot of people are intrigued as to what the Broncos will look like this year as opposed to last year. Of course, Sean Payton in as their head coach. How are people in Denver feeling about the squad this year?
I think they have a prove it to us kind of attitude, a prove it to us Russ attitude. And, I think they're tired of losing here. There's been a certain amount of apathy here, and really the whole culture of the organization needed to be changed. And Sean Payton has come in and done an incredible job of basically no nonsense. This is the way we're going to operate. And all of a sudden, all the goofy, cringeworthy social media posts that Russ had every day, those don't exist anymore. And there seems to be a greater focus and, a much better look to this team. And I'll give you, for instance, there's been a guy named Alberto Cuebanam who's been on this roster for 4 years. He's a tight end who's, he's 6'5", 260, can run a 4.4 40. I mean, he's got all the athleticism and all the athletic skills in the world. He refuses to block people, and cannot play special teams. And he's been on this roster for 4 years. And Sean Payton showcased him in their last preseason game. Showcased him. Guy had 7 catches, 108 yards, was running all over the place, hurdling people, doing everything. They can't block his way out of a wet paper sack. Just refuses to. Absolutely refuses to. The guy can't be on my team. It's an insult to everybody else who's busting their ass to do it, right? So they showcase him, and this Denver local media goes wild. Like, he made the team. Now he's such a weapon on offense. Well, they trade him. Cut down day, they said they're going to cut him. Then they ended up trading him for a 6th-rounder and a swap, the 7th and 6th-round swap. And the bottom line is people are like, well, we thought he made the team, but, blah, 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 blah. I go, it's an indictment to what's gone on here the last 4 years that you keep a dude that refuses to block people who's 6'5", 260, and can't get on the field. He's your 4th tight end and can't play special teams, and yet you keep him. It's an indictment. It's an insult to everybody else who's busting their ass to do it. And that to me is the problem with the Denver Broncos that has been fixed now that Sean Payton's here, because you better be able to play. And if you're not a starter, you better be able to contribute on special teams. And if you can't, I don't care that you look good doing burpees and running 40s. That stuff doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't help. And so, there's kind of a new sheriff in town, and I think that's going to be a great thing for this franchise.
I will say, Mark, I will be disappointed if I don't hear Russ say "Broncos country, let's ride" at the end of all of his interviews. But if that's the end of that, any chance we still get that?
No, he has not. He has not one time. He's not one time said it. Yeah, it's as a matter of fact, they just signed Will Lutz, and Will Lutz said goodbye to in his press conference. Goodbye. They traded for Will Lutz from New Orleans, the kicker, and on his goodbye to the New Orleans Saints, he says, "Here we come, Broncos country, let's ride." And I'm telling you, I was like, was that a Freudian slip, or was he making fun of Russ? But I already like him. Like, I already like that. Like, I already like you. If you're flipping him grief, I already like you. You won me over. You had me at hello.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Good reference there. Mark, thank you so much for doing this. Should be a fun season in Denver, no doubt. You'll be all over for the NFL on Fox and the Stinkin' Truth podcast. We appreciate your time tonight.
You got it. Take care, guys.
Mark Schlereth, NFL on Fox. And we mentioned the TSN 1050 fantasy football pool tomorrow night. Also, the First Up Survivor pool is launched. You could go to tsn1050.ca for details. Of course, the pinned tweet on the TSN 1050 Twitter account as well. Sign up, take on Carlo and I. Know, Frank, you'll be part of the pool. Grappler, JP, Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog. Maybe not those guys, but we'll try. We'll try to get them on board, but we encourage our audience to check that out. The Survivor pool. And you could win a free set of Rodex tires, too. I mean, what could possibly be better than that?
Dude, would you ever take Denver in that Survivor pool? How many weeks in would you have to take Denver?
Well, it's funny because in week 1, I believe the biggest favorite is Washington.
This coming
Yeah,
season?
in week 1, because they play Arizona, who's starting a dude they just traded for last week in Josh Dobbs in week 1. Like, Arizona, talk about tanking.
But Washington doesn't exude any kind of confidence.
No, not at all.
No
but again,
way.
I think it's more so that Arizona is so remarkably incompetent. Or maybe they are competent in that their goal is just to lose as many games as possible and draft the kid out of USC, Caleb Williams, number 1 overall next year, and kind of reset their franchise. Also, Arizona has Houston's number 1 overall pick, too. Another team that's probably going to stink. So they could have 2 top 5 picks. You get a stud quarterback, maybe a stud pass rusher, completely reset your franchise in a matter of 1 draft.
The Denver one is interesting because if you watch Denver this year, I don't know if you're watching to see the improvements that Payton is going to make with this team, or you're just watching to see Russ.
Exactly.
And what is he going to do? What's he going to say? Is it going to be a disaster again? Like, that's what it turned into last year. Like, this once great quarterback who won a Super Bowl is like, this guy cannot put it together. They had no offense last year.
No, he was absolutely horrible. Yeah. Absolutely horrible. There's no other way to put it. And we'll see if Sean Payton's able to resurrect him. If not, I believe the dead cap hit for Russ next offseason is something like $35-40 million.
Yeah.
And there's no way that Sean Payton's going to be accepting of running Russ out there for another year if he sucks again this season.
No.
So I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be stunned if Payton pulls the shoot on him in the middle of the year if he stinks.
Really?
Why? I mean,
well, I guess, yeah.
Well, they signed
in the middle of the year.
They signed Jarrett Stidham from the Raiders, who had a really good conclusion to last season.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Sean Payton, he has full autonomy in that organization. And say what you will about Russell Wilson, if he's not able to perform, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they're just like, all right, buddy, it's enough of you. We're moving on. We're going to find someone who can play the position.
As soon as you said middle of the year, yes, like Payton needs to give him
enough
runway to, okay, here's the system, here's the schemes, here's what we're doing. Like, you know, if it's week 1 or 2 and he pulls the plug, I'd say that's a little premature, right? Like, there's a lot of change this guy has undergone, considering even last year, everything was new, everything was foreign, and it wasn't great. So you're still kind of reconditioning him after what was a terrible season last year. So there's got to be more than a few weeks of runway for Russ to find his bearings this year.
Broncos country, let's ride.
Nice.
Russell Wilson. We'll see how it goes for him in 2023. Overdrive, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. The Grappler will have our FanDuel best bets a little bit later this hour. Rich Griffin, former Toronto Star columnist covering the Toronto Blue Jays. He will join us next. The Jays pick up a big win over Washington. We'll break it all down with Griff next. Overdrive continues here on TSN 1050, up on TSN2. Aaron Korolnek, my friend Frank Corrado here as well until 7. Grapplers, best bets, powered by FanDuel in about 20 minutes. Things started very promising for the Toronto Blue Jays today. They win 7-0 against Washington. That's all great news, right?
Yeah.
Well, as we predicted about an hour ago, Oakland had a nice lead on Seattle. And lo and behold, of course, their bullpen, the Athletics, blow it. And Seattle now up 5-4 over the A's in the bottom of the 8th. Houston up 7-4 on the Boston Red Sox. So something that happens every time seemingly the Jays win, Frank, the teams that they're chasing also win. That has to be really frustrating.
You know what actually disappoints me the most about that is you and I are sitting here, we're watching this happen in real time. We're talking on the show. And you call it. You're like, Oakland, they don't have relievers. They're not going to hold on to this lead. Let me ask you this. Did you live bet it?
No, I didn't.
Did you take advantage of this proposition?
I didn't. I have a responsibility here on national television that I don't necessarily have from 6 to 10 a.m. on First Up when I am doing some live betting. There could be like some Korean baseball involved, maybe some FIBA basketball, but pure focus here this evening because we've got a man on the line whose opinion I respect immensely when it comes to the world of the Toronto Blue Jays. Former star columnist, griffsthepitch.com. It's Rich Griffin back on the show. What's up, Rich?
Hey, man. How are you?
We're great. Thank you for doing this. And Frank and I were just talking. I'm sure you heard the conversation where does it not seem like every time the Jays pick up a win against 7-0 today against Washington, the teams around them somehow inevitably win as well? It's an odd coincidence, but I guess it's a testament to the quality of the teams that the Jays are chasing, Rich.
Yeah, I think that the key for Jays fans so that they don't lose it over time is to ignore the other teams that are in the race and just aim for a target. It's like one of those newfangled basketball leagues where you set a target score. And the Jays' target score has to be 91 wins. If they can get to 91 wins, and they don't make the playoffs, then God bless those other teams. But down the stretch in September, you've got Texas and Seattle playing 7 times against each other. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, and the Jays just need to take care of business and reach that target number, and I think that that's the way for Jays fans to look at it.
Well, I'm curious about how you feel about the Jays' chances of getting to that target number because right now, if you look at FanGraphs, it's like a 38% chance that the Jays are going to make the playoffs. If you go back 3 weeks ago, Griff, it's 75%. Like, it's a stark difference. And what a slide the Jays have been on for the last 3 weeks. How do you explain it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I hate those analytics and those numbers. Those numbers change every day, depending on a win or a loss. I could have told you that. You know, the odds are under 50% right now. But the key is that, again, they're into this part of the schedule that they were looking forward to, 15 games against 5 losing teams, 3-game series against 5 losing teams. Now they go on the road to play in Colorado, in Oakland, and come back to play the Kansas City Royals. And I think Harry and Meghan are the only Royals having a worse year.
Ooh, nice.
But this is 9 games against the 3 of the 4 worst teams in Major League Baseball. And so when Kevin Gausman said last week that they need to find a sense of urgency, well, that urgency is playing crappy teams. And that is going to happen this week. If they don't go 5-1 and 8-2 or 7-2 in this 3-series stretch, then, the Texas series in the month of September aren't going to mean that much. But I think they can do it because they have starting pitching that sets the table. It sets a floor. They have a 5-man rotation, and Chris Bassett was just downstairs now after the game waxing poetic about how great this starting rotation is. And it is the best among the teams that are alive. But the problem is it's built for a marathon and not a sprint. They don't have the real front end of the rotation guys like other teams, but they do have the kind of rotation that could throw 100 pitches every night. And if they can score 4 or 5 runs, they should be all right during the stretch.
Rich Griffin is our guest. Check out Rich's work at griffsthepitch.com and the Exit Philosophy podcast. Let's talk about the most contentious issue for Jays fans, and that, of course, occurred last night, the decision not to pinch run for Alejandro Kirk. I heard you in the postgame, Rich. a little, quizzing John Schneider on the decision. He said what he said last night. And my understanding is he also addressed it this afternoon prior to the game. What can you tell us about where Schneider stands on the decision he made last night not to pinch run for Kirk?
Well, I knew he wasn't happy with the question I asked him last night, so I did some research, and I asked him another follow-up question today, and I'm not sure he was that happy about that either. That he's used a pinch runner 39 times this year, and he said yesterday that Kirk didn't represent the tying or go-ahead run, so he didn't pinch run for him. And I challenge that as a philosophy. I mean, it doesn't seem to make much sense in that situation yesterday where they needed 2 runs, and he was concerned that Kirk didn't represent the tying run. Well, you're not going to tie the game unless you get that first run, and that move cost them a run that would have set it up for the 9th inning to tie the game. So 39 times he's used a pinch runner this year. 26 times that pinch runner has represented the tying or go-ahead run. So he was correct about that. 4 times it hasn't represented the tying or go-ahead run, and not since May 27th. So I asked him if he had changed his mind since May 27th because it seemed to be consistent policy, and he sort of weaved his way through that one. But I think it was the wrong move. Turned out to be the wrong move. And the thing about John Schneider, and I know he's taking a lot of heat from fans, is that when it's high leverage for the pitching staff and high leverage for the hitters, it seems to be high leverage for John Schneider and his coaching staff every night. But for him not to pinch run for Alejandro Kirk, well, what about Don Mattingly, who's his bench coach? What about Luis Rivera, who's the third base coach? Somebody's got to make a suggestion and say, hey, this guy can't run. I think Griff could outrun him. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
Well,
but yeah, it's high leverage for Schneider every night, and he's learning as a first full year with the job, and let's hope he learns enough to get them through September.
Rich, how do you explain that? Is that just getting too caught up in the analytics and maybe losing your feel for the game? Like, how do you explain those situations? You're right. It feels like it goes from very calm to high leverage for the Jays in a number of different scenarios very, very quickly. And there's been many times this year where they haven't really handled it as gracefully as fans would like. Like, how do you explain not having that feel for the game?
Well, Scotty Mack and I on Exit Philosophy had John Gibbons on this week, and I asked him about handling a bullpen, if he would be able to handle it, given the analytics that flow through that office every day, every night before the next day's games. And he said what we're talking about. He said that it would be very difficult for him to accept all that input and lose the intuitive nature of being a great major league manager. And I think that, a lot of things have gone by the wayside, and I always liked managers who made decisions because they felt it was right. And then when it turned out, they could discuss it. But right now it's, there's so much information flowing through a manager's office. It could be anyone. I don't blame John Schneider for some of these decisions, but some of the other decisions that come spur of the moment during a game, high leverage, it's a learning process for him as well.
Well, the Seattle Mariners just beat the Oakland A's, come back in the 8th inning, of course, and Seattle picking up a win. Houston up 3 runs on Boston. So, yes, the Jays did win, Rich, but the teams around them won as well. And I know you're encouraging us not to worry about anything you can't control, and the Jays just need to do what they can do to do just that. So I am curious your thoughts on the future. If the Jays don't make the postseason, how hot do you think the seat would be for general manager Ross Atkins?
First thing, I'm watching the end of the Seattle game on a monitor here, and I could do without their little dance, which became popular when they beat the Jays at the end of last season. But yeah, it's going to be a very hot seat for, I think, especially Ross Atkins as the GM. I mean, he's built what Chris Bassett tonight and others have said is a great pitching staff. But, maybe they've been too reliant on what would happen with the emergence of the young hitters of Vlad especially and Bo. These guys need to step it up. Every other team has somebody who says, okay, this is my time, and has stepped up to carry the offense. And it's, if you're here every night or if you watch the Blue Jays every night, it's frustrating to watch these guys because they're never the lead on any TV sports package because they don't come up with those big hits. And so the hot seat will be there for the manager, obviously, for obvious reason. But I think the GM is on an equally hot seat at this point moving forward because he's had since 2016, and the 2016 team basically belonged to Alex Anthopoulos as GM. And from the last 7 years now, if they don't make the postseason this year, somebody's got to pay.
Make sure to check out Rich's work at griffsthepitch.com, the Exit Philosophy Pod. The Jays off tomorrow before a 3-game set in Colorado. Take on the Rockies. We look forward to that, and we always appreciate your time, Rich. Thank you for this.
There were a bunch of golf clubs going on this trip, so I don't think some of them are that worried about the Colorado Rockies.
Oh, boy. That's always a good sign. Thank you for the intel. Rich Griffin.
All right, man.
Griffsthepitch.com. The golf clubs?
Sometimes you just need to tee it. You know that.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do every single day.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, there's no way they're teeing it up in Colorado, is there?
Why not?
I guess. I mean, when you were on road trips with the Leafs, were you bringing your golf clubs with you?
No, I never did. There was,
I'm sure Babcock would have loved that. If you're just you bring your putter on the plane, your Scotty Cameron.
Just knowing,
what's that, Frank?
Well, it would be very suspicious if it was me too, because I knew I was never playing.
Exactly.
You
don't even care.
Talk about being more of a distraction to the regulars. They always tell you that, eh? It's in joking, it's in passing. It's don't mess with the regulars. Don't be a distraction, right? Imagine you just bring your sticks on the bird.
Where's Frank? He's playing the local muni in Denver.
Yeah. We had a guy one time bring one of those mini acoustic guitars on a road trip, and that got some glaring looks.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? That seems pretty reasonable.
Why are you bringing a guitar on the road? We're here to play hockey.
Oh, come on. You never brought your axe on any of your road trips?
Not in the NHL, no. We had, when I played in Sudbury, we had a few guys that played the guitar, and you're just so bored on those bus trips in the OHL. So we did that a couple times. But even then, guys are like, it's enough. Guys want to sleep. Guys want to, it's gets annoying for guys.
Yeah, I could see that, no doubt. We have the best bets powered by FanDuel, presented by the Grappler, still to come, and we'll recap a very busy afternoon. Sheldon Keefe, he's got a new contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll get into that as the final hour of Overdrive continues on TSN2, up on TSN 1050. We're winding down here on Overdrive. Aaron Korolnek and Frank Corrado in for the fellas, who'll be back next week. The regular rotation here on TSN 1050 next Tuesday, following Labor Day. So looking forward to that. Carlo and I, Matthew Cause.
Full steam ahead.
Overdrive.
Yeah.
We've got Leafs and Raptors coming up in the not too distant future. The NFL. Does it get any better than this, Frank?
No, it doesn't, man. Everything's coming back. We're in full force very soon. Very exciting time. The only negative that I see is golf season is winding down.
Yeah.
And that is sad.
Still have 2 months. 2 months.
We have 2 months, but it's not a true 2 months. It's not a July, August 2 months. It is September, October 2 months where frost delays.
Oh, don't say
fall golf with
listen,
the leaves.
You and I have had our issue with frost delays. Probably our biggest fight ever involved the frost delay.
Really, our only fight?
Our only fight, yeah. You decided to... I don't even remember how it all went down, but yeah.
I
was not impressed with your decision making. Yeah, I was. Yeah. I was indeed.
But I looking back on it, I get it because you live far from the golf course. You live downtown. And I was like, listen, we got to go. We got to see what the delay is. And you were like, no, we're going to time it.
Yep.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's water under the bridge.
Well, you found some sunglasses that day. So it's
I was
good.
wearing sunglasses. Yeah, very uncharacteristic.
You were. It is amazing some of the responses that I have received for my performance on this program. Listen, I'm doing my best, people. I'm not Brian Hayes. I know you love Brian. You love the O-Dog and Noodles, of course. Of course, number one, the Gilbert Gottfried comparison was horrifying.
It's excellent.
I mean, it is very hurtful.
Can you yell and scream again?
No, I can't do it again. There's some texts coming in that are rather unflattering. So keep it professional, people. 105050. Text us, positive developments.
The Blue Jays are the worst.
That is a very quality Gilbert Gottfried impersonation. Oh, the Jays. They did win 7-0, but against Seattle, beating Oakland, and it looks like Houston's going to be beating Boston as well. So no blood, to use a golf term, when it comes to today's wild card race. Let's welcome him back, I should say, the Grappler. It's time for the FanDuel Best Bets portion of the program. Graps, what do you got tonight?
Yes, sir. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is a very light slate in terms of Major League Baseball tonight. We are looking at Braves at Rockies. Got Matt Olson to hit a home run. I just think playing at Coors Field, like a guy like Matt Olson, not that a home run's a lock, but if there's a stadium he's going to hit a home run in, you got to think it's there. Also, Ronald Acuna Jr. to get a hit, and the Dodgers on the money line at home versus the Arizona Diamondbacks. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. The first inning means as much as the ninth when you bet baseball on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 19 plus, and physically located in Ontario. Back to you, Gilbert.
Well, hopefully, Grappler, hopefully you pick some winners in there. I know you, AK, were a winner yesterday on the golf course with your pal Carlo Koliakovo.
Was I ever?
And am I right in saying it's the very first time you have beaten James Duthie and Jeff McDonald in a match?
So the story is, and we've been allotted 30 seconds for this conversation per the Grappler and JP.
And you've already wasted about 20 of them, so make it quick.
The story is, Duthie and Jeff McDonald, who's our boss here at TSN 1050, have destroyed Koliakovo and I on the golf course year after year. Finally, yesterday we go to TPC Osprey Valley, fantastic golf course, the Heathlands. Koliakovo and I just wiped the floor with those two individuals, who we gave two aside to, by the way. Carlo was 79.
You only gave them two aside?
Yeah, Duthie's a good golfer. He pretends that he is, and he wears, Duthie shows up with elbow braces on both elbows.
I know. I've
what is this? Like, he's not 80 years old. Duthie's in good physical condition. He wears those tight golf shirts.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, he's always hurt. He's got something going on.
Did he do the moto caddy or did he take a cart?
No, he took a cart. He took a cart. Yeah, but we crushed them. It was a delightful day. Now I'm concerned about my employment. If you beat the boss, probably not a good sign. So, people, you may never see me again on TSN4.
You did a great job today. I think your job security is not an issue here.
I
Fantastic.
hope that would be very unfortunate.
But listen, man, 5 times they've beaten you.
Yeah.
You finally got them.
We
Congratulations.
got over the hump. We got over the hump. It was it was very reminiscent of when John Tavares scored the OT winner for the Leafs in Game 6 against Tampa.
Were you running around?
There was some dancing, some hugging, some celebration that was probably a little bit unbecoming, especially considering the match was basically done on the back nine.
Right.
We were taking it to them, but it was great. It was a glorious moment.
Win with class.
Well, Carlo,
act like you've been there before.
Koliakovo doesn't lose anything now. I mean, guy wins club championships and collapses there was a collapse at another different.
Has he talked about that?
Oh yeah, he did.
Okay,
yeah, so he's okay with
that's
that.
unfortunate.
But yeah, he's a great guy, great broadcaster, a great friend to both you and I.
Yeah, Carlo. I played with him a couple weeks back actually with Brian Mudryk, and Carlo's golf game has improved a lot since last year. It's like he's never going to miss another fairway again. It's crazy.
If only his knowledge of pop culture and music and movies improved as much as his golf game.
Well, I'm surprised. Like, he hangs out with you every single day for 4 hours. I'm surprised he hasn't picked up on a few.
No, not a lot. Not a lot there.
Is he just not listening?
Nah, I don't know what he's listening to, but
he's texting us.
Yeah,
right now.
I don't know. Of course.
Yeah.
We love our man Coco, and maybe we'll get him on the show tomorrow. You and I have another run at this.
You want to get Carlo on?
We can grab thoughts. No, he's shaking his head. No, Carlo. All right.
Wow, Grappler.
I've never. He was like disgusted by the idea. You know how devastated Koliakovo is going to be.
We've already got a full show.
All right, Carlo.
Well, listen, Carlo's going to break down the Sheldon Keefe extension tomorrow morning from 6 till 10 a.m. We had our 3 hours to talk about it today. Like, are you feeling good? You feeling worse about it? You okay? Like, you were indifferent on it.
I didn't love it. I mean, I don't really understand what the urgency is to give Sheldon Keefe a contract extension. He had 1 year left on his deal. I don't buy the notion that you can't play out your final year of your contract.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see this media firestorm coming at Keefe after every loss.
Especially with Nylander. Like, think about everyone's talking about the Nylander extension. How come that's not done? When's that going to be? I don't think anyone was looking at Sheldon Keefe, who is a Kyle Dubas guy, thinking, oh, I can't believe they let him be a lame duck head coach. With that being said, I thought CJ brought up a good point where he's like, It's just one less distraction going into the season. Whatever you believe about the situation, it's one less distraction. But ultimately, Sheldon Keefe is a very good coach, and Brad Treliving is recognizing that and rewarding that before he's even had an opportunity to be around the team while they're playing games.
And really, the only distraction remaining would be the Nylander one, if you want to call it that. But I think it's pretty transparent as far as what's going on with that negotiation, in that the Leafs have a number in mind. Nylander has a number in mind. And until one side's like, actually, maybe what if we kind of crept towards this side or the other way around?
Let's do this. We got 30 seconds. Tomorrow, we'll talk about Nylander and why it's beneficial for the Leafs for him to play the last year out without an extension.
That is a tease.
4 p.m.
There's no chance anyone will miss a second of tomorrow's program. Thanks to Graps, JP, fantastic work. Frank, you and I will be back at it again tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m.
Ciao.